In December 2024, this company made a $2.7 billion bet to become the king of American luxury. About a year later, it couldn't make a single interest payment of $100 million. Walk up Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, and you'll still see the name in tall gold letters, Saks. The flagship opened there in 1924, and for 100 years, it sold the kind of clothes most people only ever saw in a magazine. Chanel, Burberry, a Christmas light show that drew crowds from across the country. The company that owns it had just made the biggest bet in luxury retail. It bought its oldest rival, Neiman Marcus, to build something that couldn't lose, and then it lost. This isn't a story about people who stopped wanting nice things. In its own bankruptcy filing, the company argued that demand was never really the problem. So what was? Chapter 1. How one address became the shrine of American luxury. To understand the fall, you have to understand what Saks actually was. It started in 1867, when a merchant named Andrew Saks opened a store in Washington, D.C. By the time the Fifth Avenue flagship opened in 1924, the name had become shorthand for a single idea. If you shopped at Saks, you had made it. For most of the 20th century, the American department store wasn't just a place to buy a coat, it was theater. You rode an escalator past the perfume counter and the leather goods. Up on the higher floors, a clerk in a suit asked your name and remembered it next time. Saks sat at the very top of that world, alongside two other names, Neiman Marcus, born in Dallas in 1907, and Bergdorf Goodman, the Marble Palace on Fifth Avenue, where the windows alone were a tourist attraction. These were the cathedrals of American spending, and for a long time, the math worked. People dressed up for church, for weddings, for the office. In the mid-1980s, the average American household put nearly 6% of its budget toward clothing and services. The department store caught a big slice of that. But here's the thing about a cathedral. It only works when people keep showing up. By the 2010s, fewer were. Americans started spending less and less of their paycheck on clothes. By 2017, that 6% had fallen to about 3%. People dressed casually for work. They bought online. They stopped treating a new outfit as an event. The big department names felt it everywhere. Between the early 2000s and the mid-2010s, traditional department stores in America shed about 46% of their jobs. In plain terms, nearly half the people who once worked these floors were gone. That's a steeper drop than the coal industry saw over the same stretch. Think about that for a second. We talk about coal towns as the symbol of a vanishing America, but the department store, the thing in every suburb, was quietly bleeding faster. Through those same years, mid-tier chains were dropping like flies. JCPenney and Neiman Marcus both landed in bankruptcy in 2020. Sears shrank to almost nothing. The middle of the market was getting wiped out. The raw count tells the story. Between 2017 and 2022, the number of clothing and accessory stores in America fell from about 143,500 to roughly 121,600. That's more than 20,000 storefronts gone in 5 years. The shelves were emptying out long before Saks ever signed its deal. Saks, Neiman, and Bergdorf rode above the worst of it because luxury is different. The very rich keep spending when everyone else pulls back. A $4,000 handbag doesn't care about a recession the way a $40 sweater does. That was the belief, that luxury, at least, was safe. It was about to be tested in the worst possible way. Chapter 2. The month it spent billions it did not have. Every fall has a date. For Saks, it was December 2024. That month, the parent company behind Saks Fifth Avenue did something bold. It bought Neiman Marcus in a deal worth about $2.7 billion. On paper, it looked brilliant. You take the two biggest luxury department names in America and put them under one roof. Saks, Neiman Marcus, Bergdorf Goodman. One company to rule the high end. The man behind the deal was Richard Baker, a real estate executive who had spent years collecting retail names. The new company was called Saks Global. The pitch was simple. In a fragmented luxury market, scale would win. But there's a catch with a deal this size. You rarely pay $2.7 billion out of your own pocket. You borrow most of it. This had the logic of what's called a leveraged buyout. In plain English, you buy something with a large pile of borrowed money. Then you bet that what you bought will earn enough to pay that debt back. It's the same logic as buying a house with a giant mortgage. It works beautifully when your income is steady. It turns into a trap the moment the money coming in dips below the payment going out. Saks bought the crown, and it leaned heavily on borrowed money to do it. For a leveraged deal to work, the bigger company has to throw off serious cash. Saks Global needed Neiman Marcus and Saks to sell hard every quarter just to feed the interest payments. They didn't. Sales were soft. In one stretch, revenue fell more than 13% from the year before. Saks had never fully bounced back from the pandemic. Shoppers who used to wander a luxury floor were now buying online or straight from the brands themselves. The merger that was supposed to create strength instead created a mountain of payments. Within months, the cracks showed. By late 2025, the company was struggling to pay the brands that filled its shelves. Then came the moment that made it official. In December 2025, Saks Global missed an interest payment of about $100 million. Sit with the size of that gap. A year earlier, this company had confidently bet $2.7 billion on getting bigger. Now, it couldn't find $100 million to stay current on its own debt. The same appetite that let it swallow a rival had left it unable to pay the bill. By the time it filed for bankruptcy, Saks owed about $3.4 billion, and the timing could not have been worse. Interest rates stayed high, so the cost of all that borrowing kept climbing. New tariffs added fresh uncertainty, which the company said made its talks with potential lenders even harder. Saks even ran out of steady leadership. Richard Baker, the executive who built the merger, stepped aside. A former Neiman Marcus boss named Geoffroy Van Rundonk was brought in to clean up the wreckage. Critics had a blunt phrase for the whole thing. They called it a doomed merger from the start. But the debt was only the first of 4 forces closing in at the same time. Chapter 3. 4 forces that closed in at once. A company this big doesn't die from one wound. It dies from several, all bleeding at once. The first force was the debt itself. We've covered it, but it's the engine of everything that follows. Every dollar of profit had a prior claim on it. The interest came first. Fixing up the stores came last, if at all. The second force was a recovery that never came. The pandemic had reshaped where and how people shopped, and the luxury floors that once buzzed never fully filled back up. Saks itself pointed less to vanished customers than to a business it could no longer keep stocked. A luxury store with thin shelves is a very expensive room full of nothing to buy. The third force was a quiet shift in how luxury even gets sold. For decades, if you wanted Chanel or Gucci, you went to a department store. But the brands themselves changed the game. They opened their own shops. They built their own websites. Why split the profit with Saks when you can sell the bag yourself? The luxury department store was being cut out of its own business. And then came the fourth force, the one that turns a slow decline into a free fall. When Saks ran short on cash, it started paying its suppliers late. Those suppliers are the brands that stock the shelves, and brands that don't get paid do something simple. They stop shipping. And these weren't small vendors. Court records later showed Saks owed Chanel about $136 million, the owner of Gucci about $60 million, and LVMH about $26 million. The most famous names in fashion were now standing in line as unpaid creditors, so the shelves got thinner. And thin shelves give shoppers a reason to leave. Watch how the trap closes. The debt ate the profit, so there was nothing left to fix the stores. The empty downtown kept the shoppers away. The brands pulled their best goods to sell themselves, and the late payments scared off the suppliers who were left, which emptied the shelves, which chased away the few shoppers still coming. Each problem fed the next, and the loop spun faster every quarter. This part should sound familiar. It's the same machinery that kills a struggling shopping mall. One anchor leaves, traffic drops. The next store can't make rent, and the spiral feeds itself. Saks was living the luxury version of that exact death loop, just with marble floors and a doorman. By the time it filed for bankruptcy in January 2026, the company employed nearly 17,000 people. They worked across a sprawling network of luxury and off-price stores. All of them were now hostage to a math problem that had started with a single signature in December 2024. In its own court filing, Saks argued that the trouble was never really demand. The rich still wanted their handbags. What the company couldn't manage was the debt and the empty shelves that came with buying that demand. The bill, not the demand, was the killer. To see just how avoidable it all was, you only have to look at what a rival did in the very same month. Chapter 4. Two giants made opposite bets in the same December. Here's the detail that makes this story sting. In the same month that Saks borrowed billions to buy a rival, another American department store made the opposite bet. Its name was Nordstrom. Nordstrom started in 1901 as a Seattle shoe store. Over 125 years, it grew into one of the most respected names in American retail. And by 2024, it faced the same brutal weather as everyone else: slow sales, a stock price that had tumbled, Wall Street demanding bigger returns every single quarter. Two companies, same industry, same storm, same December. Saks looked at that storm and decided to get bigger. It took on debt and swallowed Neiman Marcus. Nordstrom looked at the same storm and decided to get smaller and quieter. In December 2024, the founding family teamed up with a Mexican retailer and bought the company back from the stock market. The deal valued Nordstrom at about $6.25 billion. They took it private. Going private sounds like jargon, so here's what it really means. The family stopped answering to outside shareholders. No more quarterly pressure to juice the stock. They could finally run the place for the long haul instead of the next earnings call. One company borrowed to expand, the other retreated to survive. This wasn't a snap decision for Nordstrom either. The family had tried to go private once before, back in 2018, and failed. They only pulled it off in 2024, after years of believing the public market simply undervalued what they had built, and the results came fast. While Saks was missing payments and watching its shelves empty, Nordstrom was quietly fixing its stores and merging its customer data. By 2025, it was reported to be climbing back, with sales pushing past where they stood in 2019, before the pandemic. One account put its revenue around $15.9 billion, up roughly 7% on the year. Even better for Nordstrom, the chaos next door became an opportunity. As Saks and Neiman stumbled, confused luxury shoppers needed somewhere else to go. One rival's collapse was another rival's open door. Now, this isn't a fairy tale where retreating always wins. Nordstrom took on some debt of its own in the deal, and being private comes with its own pressures. The family has said as much, but the contrast is impossible to ignore. Faced with the identical moment, one company bet that scale and debt would save it, and one bet that focus and patience would. Just over a year later, one was in a bankruptcy court in Texas, and the other was back above its pre-pandemic sales. The difference wasn't the weather. They both stood in the same storm. The difference was the bet, and here's why that should worry you. The bet Saks made wasn't unusual at all. It's one of the most common moves in American business. Chapter 5. The same debt is sitting on other balance sheets. So is Saks just one bad deal? A single company that reached too far? It would be comforting to think so. It isn't true. The thing that sank Saks wasn't bad luck or bad taste. It was a structure. Buy something big, pay for it largely with borrowed money, and pray that sales stay strong enough to cover the interest. That structure shows up again and again across American retail and other industries built on borrowed money. It's how a lot of retail chains get bought and sold. A buyer takes over a company, loads it up with debt, and counts on good times to last. When the good times wobble, the debt doesn't wobble with them. The payment is due, no matter what. We've watched this movie before. Toys R Us is the classic case. Kids didn't stop wanting toys. The chain went down under a crushing pile of buyout debt, online competition, and stores it never modernized. The debt is what left it no room to fight back. Many famous store names that vanished over the past decade weren't killed by online shopping alone. They were killed by online shopping plus a loan they couldn't outrun. And it's not just retail. The same playbook has drawn criticism in other industries too, from hospitals to restaurants. A buyer takes over, piles on debt, and pulls the cash out. When the business hits a rough patch, there's no cushion left, because the cushion got spent on interest years ago. So here's something concrete. The next time a beloved chain announces a giant merger or buyout, don't just ask whether the brand is loved. Ask how the deal was paid for. Check whether it was bought with cash or with debt. That single fact tells you more about its future than any ad campaign ever will. And the warning signs are often public. For a company that trades on the stock market, its debt load shows up in regular filings, quarter after quarter. You don't need to be an analyst to spot a number climbing while sales sit flat. You just need to know to look. Because demand can be strong, and a company can still die. That's the real lesson of Saks. We tend to assume a business fails because customers walked away, but the customers were still there. The rich still wanted their handbags. The flagship on Fifth Avenue still drew a crowd. What walked away was the cash to keep the lights on, while the debt got paid first. There's a strange honesty in how the company framed it. In its bankruptcy filing, it didn't pin the blame on shoppers or on the economy. It said the real problem was keeping the shelves stocked and the bills paid, not a lack of demand. That might be the most honest thing a dying company has ever admitted. It wanted to be the king of luxury. It had the customers, the names, the 100-year reputation, the address everyone recognized. It had everything, except the one thing that actually keeps a company alive: room to breathe. The story of Saks isn't really about luxury at all. It's about a quiet truth that Saks puts in sharp relief. A company doesn't always lose because its customers left. Sometimes it loses because it owes more than it can carry. The names change: Toys R Us, Sears, now Saks, and the details are never identical. But in each case, heavy debt turned a struggling business into a falling one. So here's the question worth sitting with. How many brands you love are kept alive, not by what they sell, but by how long their lenders will wait? If a name you grew up with vanished tomorrow, would you assume people stopped wanting it, or would you finally ask who it owed?